Thanks for tapping into another episode of Untapped Keg. I'm your host, RJ Zimmerman, and we get to just be you and me today. And I would really like to talk to you about a psychological concept and honestly, like a healing principle that you may have heard from, healing and growth podcasts. You might see it on social media, self-help books, a lot of different areas, and that's shadow work. When you first hear it, it sounds like what the fuck is shadow work, right? Like, what does that even mean? Like, I gotta look, in the shadows for something that's there. And I want to start with what the principle is described as, and then my understanding of it, and maybe a little bit about my own journey about it, and then we'll get into how my coaching and mentoring that I do really involves this concept, but it involves it in such a way that you don't even realize you're doing it, which honestly is something that, in my opinion, is what it's all about. Because when you intentionally dive into it a little bit, you might be missing, or you might have that confirmation bias, that piece of you that your brain is like, you know what, I need to be right here, and so your brain makes it right. Like that's that confirmation bias. And you might be making it because you want something to be true, but it might not necessarily be true. And I know I talked about coaching before, but I have this really great new offer. It's a $20 5-day self-discovery toolkit. It really takes you on a journey of just surviving in life to thriving, and you get a lot of the lessons that we're going to talk about in this episode. But what it does is it takes you through self-honesty. It takes you through some of the emotions. And then how can I use this in my day-to-day life so I don't have to make these big changes in order to improve how I view my life? Another thing, if you're watching the video, let's call out the elephant in the room. Yes, I have a mustache right now. It is because it is opening day baseball and the Milwaukee Brewers are playing. And let me tell you, um, it's pretty cool. It's something I've been doing for about 16, 17 years now. It's just a way that I create fun in my life. All right. And that's something that I want you to take away from today's episode is that you get to create fun in your life in different ways that maybe you didn't even think would be as much fun as it really is. So we make these big life changes, and a lot of the time they can feel overwhelming. And that's where shadow work comes in. Now, when I first heard about shadow work, I was like, well, what is this? Like, I don't understand it. And I asked a friend to describe it to me. When they were describing it to me, they really used this definition that I'm going to give you in a second. But I looked at them, I'm like, I'm already doing that. And they go, yeah, I kind of thought that you knew that's what you were doing. And I was like, no, I just started hearing about this. And let me tell you, uh, I don't know. I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. And that's something that's cool about coaching and mentoring is that you don't have to do this on your own. You can actually have somebody that speeds it up. Like for me, this has really been an 11-year journey, right? It doesn't have to be that long. And it doesn't have to look like therapy. It can look like talking to somebody who is trained to understand and see patterns, be able to give you ideas and ways to be able to walk through them and just give you understanding, give you validation, give you a space to just talk things out when you're confused. And so I want you to know about coaching because it is so powerful. So let's get into the basics and the understanding of shadow work, right? So shadow work is from the psychological modality, which is basically just a fancy term of like, um, the house from Harry Potter. You have Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff. I almost said Hippogriff. My God. Hufflepuff and Slytherin, right? So you have those four houses. Well, psychology has a bunch of different houses. And one of them, they call them modalities. One of them is called depth psychology, and it was started by Carl Jung. I don't know why all of a sudden, like I can't talk, but let me grab a drink quick. Hey, you, it's RJ. You know that feeling after you quit drinking when you've done the hard part, but still feel stuck? Like there's something still missing. I've been there. That's why I created the 5 day self-discovery toolkit. This isn't just about surviving without alcohol, it's about actually thriving. In just 5 days, you'll learn how to connect with your authentic self, transform that inner critic that had me questioning why my kids would love me, and finally feel comfortable in your own skin. For just $20, you get the exact tools that help me move from merely existing to truly living. Head to untappedkeg.com/toolkit for more, and let's fill that void together. All right, started by Carl. Why am I saying Kyle? Carl Jung, right? Really fascinating person. Like, just not even if you're in the psychology, the philosophy that he brings, it's really cool. Um, Honestly, the more that I dive into, he's a Swiss psychiatrist. The more that I'm really interested in how his mind worked and the way that he saw the world because it's so relatable and it's understandable, and you start to see why he looked at psychology the way that he did. Um, Basically, the term shadow, he used it to describe the aspects of our personality that we've pushed into our unconscious because they don't fit with how we want to see ourselves or how we think we should be. Want to emphasize that point. How we think we should be. And by the way, I want to bring this around right now that how we think we should be can be it was given to us by somebody else, right? This is how other people think we should be. And so we think we should be that way. So, really, there's pieces of ourself that we push away, we push to the side, we stop thinking about. And those aspects are in the quote unquote shadow, right? They don't disappear, they're who we are. And they can look like this. Emotions we were taught were quote unquote bad, right? Anger, jealousy, sadness. Desires or needs that were discouraged. Parts of our personality that didn't receive approval. Traits we saw negatively in others and disowned in ourselves. Ooh, that one's powerful, right? Want you to understand your shadow isn't negative. It's just the pieces of ourself that we've pushed to the background. And that piece is important as well, right? So we're going to define the shadow is, pieces of ourself in our own unconscious. Now, how can those show up, right? We already talked about how it could be emotions, needs, or desires, parts of our personality that we wanted to hide, and traits that maybe we saw in other people that we disowned in ourselves because we don't like them. Well, here's where shadow work is important because it still shows up, even though it's in the unconscious and these subconscious areas, it still shows up in our lives daily and it affects our behavior. Sometimes it can show up as projection, what we see in others, but we deny in ourselves, right? That's projection. They call it an ego defense mechanism because we see it in other people, but we can't see it in ourselves because we don't want to. And so that's a massive one. It shows up as self-sabotage, where we're working against our desires because we had patterns in the past that continue to repeat. So we can self-sabotage the recurring problems, things that keep showing up in our lives that cause us issues. They can show up in relationships, show up where, um, in honestly, parent-child dynamics, like it can show up in so many different places, friendships, especially, um, and your emotional reactions, right? Your response to things, especially like triggers. Like this is where triggers and understanding what a trigger is can be really important. For those of you who are new, my definition of a trigger, one that I can use, and works for me. And I really encourage people to take these definitions and make them your own so that you can use them, right? My definition of a trigger is a heightened emotional response. That's a that's my definition of a trigger. Um, whether that works for you or not, maybe we can get there. Maybe it's just like behaviors that happen that don't fit the situation you're in. Like maybe that could be, what a trigger means to you. So, with all of this being said, there are different ways that you can use this, different ways to look into it. Here's where I'm going to tell you, here's the way that I see shadow work. I really like the way that this has been laid out. It really aligns with the way that I view shadow work, but it's basically where my actions and behaviors that I'm not consciously thinking about, that I'm not aware of, where they come from. That's kind of the way that I view shadow work. So if I'm on autopilot, the actions that are happening, that's my shadow. If something happens that I just reacted and it came out, that's my shadow. That's how I view shadow work. And the work part of it, right? That's my shadow. That's where it's acting from. And that's where it's not negative at all. The work part is understanding where that's coming from, why it could be there. There's so many different reasons, right? And that's where shadow work can be so transformational. And there are some beginning steps that you can take, right? To be able to do that work part of it. But understand that your shadow's not bad. Your shadow's just hidden from you. That's basically all it means. And when you have been consciously trying to achieve something for most of your life, a lot of things go into the shadow that you don't even realize. So now, as you become more aware of yourself, more things you're going to start to notice that come out. You can dig deeper and find what is the reason underneath. Um, one way that the shadow can show up, and like it, hate it, doesn't really matter. It's just for me, it's a way to better understand yourself. It doesn't mean that this is a defining identity like thing, right? But your um, relationship style, right? Your what do they call it? I don't know. Anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. That style, your attachment style. That's the word I was looking for. Your attachment style. It comes from your shadow. You're not consciously choosing to show up in any of those ways, or you could be secure. There's four. Um, you're not consciously trying to show up in those ways. It's just how you are, right? That comes from the shadow. And so the work is, okay, what is going on? The work is understanding yourself. The work is, why did I do that? Why did I yell at my kids? I don't want to yell at my kids anymore. Okay. Like, I'm not gonna lie. The work isn't, I'm never gonna yell at my kids again. The work is, what is causing me to yell at my kids? And then apologizing for it. And it's less frequent, it's less intense. That's a good thing. But it may not just be never again. It's just giving yourself that understanding and that compassion that you're human. Can we start there? You're human. You're allowed to be this. So, some of the beginning things that you can do, you can notice triggers. You can notice where things have that heightened emotional response or that action that happens that you're unaware of where of it actually occurring, right? You can look into your judgments when you're judging others harshly. What is it that I'm judging in myself that I'm putting onto somebody else? You can look for patterns, how they show up in your life. Like sometimes if you feel you're unworthy, that's going to show up in your friendships and your coworker and your um, relationships. It's going to show up how you talk to your kids, how you think about your kids. It's going to show up all over the place. It doesn't matter of seeing that pattern. And here's one: learn about your emotions and what they're telling you when you're feeling them. Emotions are information. They don't need to be acted upon. It's okay to like process them and allow yourself to feel them. But the more that you understand how they show up and when, the more that you can work through them and understand them and have this deeper feeling about yourself that you can move through. So there's so much that we could go through as to what shadow work can bring you, but what I really want to get to is how shadow work kind of showed up in my life. So my wife tells me she wants a divorce, and this is 6 years after I stopped drinking alcohol. So I'm sober for 6 years. And it's just like I look in the mirror and all I see is a void. I just see this emptiness. I see it everywhere. I've been feeling like there's more to life than what's been happening. I know we're disconnected. We had 2 kids under 2. Work was really difficult for me. We had started a business for about a year, working on it. Like on my off days, I was there helping, and she did most of the heavy lifting, right? But always feeling like there's something that I have to do. And I'm like, there has to be more life than this. I'm not enjoying anything. Anything. Literally anything. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying my time with my kids. I'm not enjoying moments alone. I'm feeling lonelier than I ever had. So I'm looking in the mirror and it's like, okay, I can continue to just have this emptiness and questioning just what the fuck is going on, or I can do something different, right? I got diagnosed with ADHD, and that opened up an entirely new world, not from the diagnosis, but from being open to understanding more about ADHD. And as I learned from more people with ADHD, because the therapy community, right? The mental health community, the people who are certified don't tell you shit other than what kind of medications would you want to explore and some of the stereotypes. And so I didn't understand how my brain was interacting with my body and that disconnection that was there. Well, I start a podcast, I start talking to people, I start learning, talking things through, like have this auditory journaling system that is a podcast. It's this one. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here. And as I talk with people, I start to see some of the things they're talking about inside myself. And I start to explore that. And it's like, huh, I resonate with that. Huh. That's something that I went through as a kid. Huh. I've dealt with something really similar inside of myself. What did you call that? How did you work through it? What are some things? Led me to explore different aspects of psychology outside of therapy, really figuring out, trying to understand myself. And a big one was about a year after the podcast started, and I'm doing therapy and all of this. I finally listened to people who are telling me the things, and I learn about emotions. I try to understand them. I try to understand myself. And through this understanding myself and these emotions, I can see where I've acted from throughout my life. I can see patterns starting to show up from the time that I'm 4, maybe a little bit younger. And those patterns showed themselves throughout school, showed themselves massively in college, and really showed itself as I went through my apprenticeship for a high voltage line tech and being a journeyman, being a foreman, and a lot of the things that I went through as an adult, right? And why divorce has been so difficult. Um, and it's a lot of things that have shown up with those patterns. So I'm learning these patterns. I'm understanding these emotions that I'm having where a lot of my actions are coming from. I'm not acting from a place of reaction anymore, but I'm more responding because I have this deeper understanding of myself. And that's where I find out what shadow work is. Like I thought it had something to do with the fucking moon. I was like, I don't know what this shadow work is. That's woo-woo bullshit. It's not necessarily woo-woo bullshit. It's just words to concepts that I don't necessarily understand yet. It's if we're using different words to describe the same thing, It doesn't mean the other thing's wrong. It just means that we have a gap that we're not bridging because these words that we're saying mean different things to each other. This is so common. So if you have that understanding that a lot of arguments are happening, you're saying the same fucking thing in different words, sometimes it's really hard to get across that gap. Take a step back. What is it you are saying? Oh, I'm saying that too. You just went left and I went right, and we met around the block and we felt like that we weren't going the same place. We were going the same place. Would have taken would have been a lot shorter to get there if we'd have taken that alley. But I thought I was getting away from you, right? Like that happens so often. And so for me, my journey, here's how it's looked. And this comes directly, it's about shadow work, but it comes from my self-discovery course because really shadow work is just discovering things about yourself. It's getting that understanding. It's finding ways that you can take these things that you are know about yourself and choose something different that works better for you. But you're choosing the same because you don't realize that you can choose different, what that different could look like, or why you're trying. This one's massive that a lot of my clients, they'll be like, I don't know why I keep doing this thing. A lot of times is drinking, right? Because that's what it's around. But this works for anything, right? Any behavior that you want to stop, but you're not. But a lot of times it looks like drinking. I don't know why I keep drinking. A few of my clients realize, oh, you're trying to regulate. Like you're really dysregulated right now. Maybe it's not nervous system. This is where ADHD is such a blessing because I can understand this. It may not be nervous system, it might be your brain is trying to regulate because you have this imbalance. The hormones that you're looking for, they just aren't there. You don't know what to do. Alcohol gets you there. That's why you did it. So it's not just hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Halt. It's also regulation. Are you looking for regulation? Guess what? If you're looking for regulation, there are different things you can do. But if you don't know it's regulation you're looking for, it looks a hell of a lot different than if you're exploring, if you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're lonely or you're tired. It looks a hell of a lot different if you're looking for regulation. That can be a lot of different things. So hit me up. Hit me up after this. My DMs are open on all socials. Untapped Keg. Search it on that social media. Hit me up with a DM. Let's talk about regulation strategies because that's so massive. We have to be honest with yourself. That's self-honesty. That's first thing that you need if you want to have this understanding of yourself is that self-honesty. There's three S's in this self-honesty. And these are levels of understanding where your actions or your beliefs are coming from, and that's why you're acting, right? There's the beliefs that you have about anything external from you, and we call that substance. And it can be alcohol, but it could be other things too. A relationship could be the substance that is external from you that you have beliefs about, right? And if you don't have that relationship, it means something about yourself. It's a belief, right? The society. If I don't have alcohol, I'm going to be a loner. I'm going to be no fun, right? And the self, I'm not worthy of living a life of my dreams. I'm not worthy of, I feel like I have to work so hard that I don't have any energy for my kids because otherwise I'm not going to be a success and they're going to fail if I don't work so hard. That's a belief about yourself that is going to come from a place that cause you to act from a place that maybe you don't want to. There's self-talk. This one is so the most transformative piece of shadow work that you can do is your self-talk. Notice the way that you talk to yourself. Notice it. This was the most transformative thing that I did. Generally, it's not good. And this is where that self-honesty comes in. It's worse than not good. It's as bad as it can be how you talk to yourself. You call yourself a piece of shit. You tell yourself you're stupid, you're worthless. No wonder nobody likes you. How can anybody care about you? They don't care about you. They just tolerate you, right? Is that true? Or have there just been instances where you've seen that? So with your self-talk, it's not about making everything positive. You're the best person who's ever lived. You are so incredible, you make no mistakes. You are so amazing and phenomenal that you deserve to do whatever the fuck you want to do, right? Some of that's true, but you're not going to go from that really low self-talk right up to there. Get to a place of just saying you're okay. Just get to a place of neutral. Get to a place of, no, I'm not stupid. What I did, that action, that was stupid. I can do better than that. All right, get to that place. Get to that place of, oh, I made a mistake. I can learn from it. Doesn't mean that fucking mistake is gone. I got to deal with those consequences. God damn it. Right? Guess what? Deal with those consequences. Give yourself that space to be human. When you are working on your self-talk, also look at the stories versus the facts. What stories are you creating that are making things into something bigger and making that self-talk go crazy negative, like pull you down and feel like you deserve all the pain in the world because you're you. You know, what is the story you're telling yourself where you believe that? This is honest to God true. I used to tell myself that my kids were going to get sick to pay for my sins. And I haven't done anything for anybody to deserve that. Am I the best person in the world? No. Am I a great person? I'd say no. But am I just a fine person who hasn't done anything crazy wrong? Yeah. So why would my kids deserve to pay for my sins? Why do I deserve that pain? It's a fucking story I'm telling myself that's keeping this self-talk so negative that I can't do anything. And that's where shadow work, like you can really start to look at these things. And you're not looking at it from a judgment place, like why am I like this? Like what is wrong with me? It's more like, oh, I see how I got there. I see how I got there, and I don't have to follow it. And you can start to make a different choice. The next part is self-exploration. So you had self-honesty. Now you have that self-exploration. This is where the emotions and feelings coming in. When you start to look at your emotions and feelings, understand that none of them are negative. It's all information. It's information that you can use. It's information you can understand yourself. Sometimes the anger will show up because you were disrespected and you didn't recognize that you were disrespected in that moment. Sometimes it shows up because you should have spoke up because there was a need that could have been met, but instead you just kept silent. That need just isn't met. There's the difference between being in discomfort and being uncomfortable, right? Discomfort is good. It means you're doing something different and you're growing and you're trying that difference because of that. Uncomfortable, it probably means that you are doing the same pattern in a different way. That one, it takes a lot to be able to understand because there's some nuances there. There's learning and unlearning. So there's 4 A's of mastery that we go through in this, right? And it's asleep, where it's you're unconscious, right? You're unconscious and you don't realize there's a problem. Aware. You understand that there's an issue, right? You don't yet know how to address it. Awake. You are aware, you are conscious of what a solution could be, and you start to take that action. And then you have the alive, which is that mastery. It goes more into the subconscious. You don't have to be conscious to make that choice anymore. It just kind of happens. And then there's the internalization versus the externalization. This is another one that can be convoluted to a point, but really what it is you don't take things that should be external, like your pride, like your worth, like how you feel about yourself and put that on external things. And you don't take external things that happen, like honestly, outcomes, put them on yourself, put them like internal. That's what that means. And then last, we have that self acceptance phase, which you start to learn how to give yourself that self compassion. You give yourself that understanding that you can do things different. And you really start to understand that life really is all rainbows and unicorns. It's just that while we're admiring the rainbows, we forget that unicorns are animals and they have to shit. So while we're looking at these beautiful rainbows, all of a sudden we look around and we have nothing but shit around us. We can no longer see the beauty that is the rainbows and we just hate those unicorns. But when you start to pick that shit up, you can start to see the beauty of the rainbows again. You can start to appreciate the majesty that are the unicorns. But you got to stay up with cleaning that shit up because they're animals and it's going to happen. With that, I want you to understand that shadow work sounds woo-woo, right? It sounds like this massive thing, but really all it is understanding yourself better. If you're interested to learn more about coaching or mentoring, please email me, rj@untappedkeg.com. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Or you can go to untappedkeg.com and look at some of the offerings, and you can kind of find out a little bit more about my story. I am accepting one-on-one clients now. There, I only have space for 3 more. So if you are interested in that, follow the link below. If you have any questions about shadow work, about anything that we talked about, if you'd like to know more about some of the exercises that I talked about, please feel free to message me. This is such a transformative piece of understanding yourself and living life in a way that you actually want to, and not just because you feel like you should and you feel empty. It's actually showing up how you want to show up. And it allows you to be a partner, romantic partner, to be a friend, to be a child, to be a parent from a place that you want to be and not from a place of acting from where your wounds are. And your wounds are often in that subconscious, they're in the shadow. So when you start to understand what's there, you can start to show up completely different. And if there's somebody in your life you want to be on their own growth journey to heal something that's inside of them, the most powerful way to get through to them is by showing them, by going through your own growth journey. You have a great week. I appreciate you being here. Please share this episode with somebody who you know would benefit from it. Have a great week, everybody. I love you.